A business plans to deploy shared iPads to a team using managed Apple accounts. What are the minimum requirements to support this deployment? Select two answers. A. The iPads must be supervised. B. Each iPad must be jailbroken. C. The iPads must have at least 32 gigabytes of storage. D. Each user must create a personal Apple ID. Correct answers. A. The iPads must be supervised. C. The iPads must have at least 32 gigabytes of storage. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. To begin with, Shared iPad is a specific Apple feature designed for institutions that manage multiple users on the same device. For this to function correctly, the iPads must be supervised. Supervision allows deeper management capabilities, which are essential for configuring and maintaining shared iPads across an organization. Additionally, the iPads must have at least 32 gigabytes of storage. This is a technical requirement from Apple to ensure that there is sufficient space for storing multiple user accounts and associated data on the same device. Devices with less than 32 gigabytes are not eligible for shared iPad deployment. On the other hand, each iPad must be jailbroken is incorrect. Jailbreaking removes Apple's security restrictions and is not only unsupported but also a serious security risk, especially in managed environments. Lastly, each user must create a personal Apple ID is also incorrect. Shared iPad uses managed Apple IDs that are generated and assigned by the organization through Apple School Manager or Apple Business Manager, not personal Apple IDs. This allows for controlled access, data separation, and managed experience across users. A student downloaded Mozilla Firefox for Mac from the developer's website. What step is necessary to complete the installation? Select one answer. A. Move the app to the desktop. B. Restart the Mac. C. Drag the app to the application. D. Uninstall Safari first. Correct answer. C. Drag the app to the applications folder. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. After downloading Firefox on a Mac, the standard installation process involves opening the disk image and then dragging the app into the applications folder. This ensures the app is properly installed and accessible from Launchpad or Spotlight. On the contrary, moving the app to the desktop is incorrect because the desktop is not the designated location for installed applications on macOS, which could cause performance or permission issues. Similarly, restarting the Mac is not required for this kind of installation. Most macOS apps do not need a reboot to complete setup. Lastly, uninstalling Safari first is unnecessary. macOS supports having multiple browsers installed simultaneously without any conflicts. A user installs Adobe Creative Cloud but finds it doesn't fully uninstall after dragging it to the trash. What's likely missing? Select one answer. A. They didn't sign out of their Apple ID. B. They didn't empty the trash. C. They didn't use the developer-provided uninstaller. D. They deleted the Launchpad icon only. Correct answer, C. They didn't use the developer-provided installer. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. Some applications, especially complex ones like Adobe Creative Cloud, install various support files across different locations in the system. Simply dragging the app to the trash doesn't remove all these components. That's why using the developer-provided uninstaller is essential. It's designed to locate and remove every related file properly. Now, signing out of their Apple ID has no impact on whether the application is removed. The Apple ID is linked to iCloud and App Store, not to local uninstallation processes. Also, not emptying the trash only leaves the app in the bin. It doesn't affect background components already installed across the system. Lastly, deleting the Launchpad icon removes just the shortcut, not the app or its data. The program remains on the disk, functioning as usual. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The About section of General Settings includes the device's serial number. True settings related to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth appear immediately beneath the Apple ID login section. True. Jamf Pro cannot report a newly created local account until the weekly inventory update runs. False. The General section in Settings provides access to software update options. True. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. The About section in General Settings shows key information like the device's name, serial number, and software version, which confirms the first statement is true. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings appear just beneath the Apple ID section in the settings sidebar, making the second statement also true. The third statement is false because Jamf Pro can report a newly created local account immediately if a policy with the update inventory payload is executed without waiting for the weekly inventory schedule. Finally, the last statement is true. You can access software updates by navigating to General Software Update in the device's settings. What can you do using the iPhone camera features? Select one answer. A. Automate your home locks. B. Join a FaceTime call. C. Take photos and videos on the fly. D. Update emergency contacts. Correct answer, C. Photos and videos on the fly. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. The camera app on an iPhone is designed for quick and intuitive media capture. Whether it's a spontaneous photo or a video recording, users can activate the camera instantly from the lock screen control center or within apps, making taking photos and videos on the fly the most accurate option. Now, automating your home locks is incorrect because that feature is handled through the Home app, which integrates with HomeKit accessories rather than the camera. Joining a FaceTime call is also unrelated to camera functionality. FaceTime is a dedicated app used for video and audio communication and not tied to camera control features directly. Lastly, updating emergency contacts is managed via the Health or Contacts app, not through the camera app. Liam wants to stay connected with his family using his iPad. He's not sure what built-in features are available for communication. What two features should he use? Select two answers. A. FaceTime. B. Messages. C. Wallpaper settings. D. iCloud Drive. Correct answers: A. FaceTime. B. Messages. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. FaceTime is Apple's built-in app for video and audio calling. It's especially useful for staying connected with family through face-to-face conversations, even at a distance. Messages allows users to send text messages, photos, videos, and more. It's a core feature for keeping in touch and supports both SMS and iMessage depending on the recipient's device. On the other hand, wallpaper settings only control the appearance of the device's home or lock screen and offer no communication functionality. Lastly, iCloud Drive is used for file storage and synchronization, not for messaging or video calling. So, while helpful for productivity, it doesn't serve the purpose of real-time communication. An admin wants to ensure all apps purchased on one device are also available on a new Mac without needing to install each one manually. What settings should they enable? Select one answer. A. Automatic downloads in Finder. B. Sync purchases in iCloud. C. Automatically download apps purchased on other devices. D. One-click install in Launchpad. Correct answer, C. Automatically download apps purchased on other devices. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. The setting automatically download apps purchased on other devices is found in the App Store preferences. When enabled, it ensures that any app bought on another device signed in with the same Apple ID is automatically downloaded to the current Mac. This saves time and ensures consistency across devices. Now, automatic downloads in Finder is incorrect because Finder does not manage or track App Store purchases or app downloads. Sync purchases in iCloud sounds relevant but is misleading. iCloud doesn't handle app purchase syncing. It focuses on data syncing like files, contacts, and settings. Lastly, one-click install in Launchpad is not a real feature. Launchpad is simply a visual interface for managing and opening apps, not for syncing purchases. An IT technician wants to change the position of the dock on all company Macs using a script. They plan to use the terminal. What command should they include to move the dock to the left side of the screen? Select one answer. A. Defaults right com.apple.dock orientation left. B. Defaults set dock.position left. C. Edit com.apple.dock.plist-set position left. D. Plist modify dock side left. Correct answer, A. Defaults right com.apple.dock orientation left. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. The defaults command is a standard tool in macOS used to modify user preferences stored in .plist files. The correct syntax to change the dock's position is defaults right com.apple.dock orientation left. This effectively updates the orientation key for the dock to move it to the left side of the screen. After running this command, the dock can be restarted using kill-all-dock to apply the change. Now, default set position left is incorrect because default set is not a valid command. The correct verb is write. Edit com.apple.doc.plist set position left is invalid because there's no command line tool called edit for modifying plist files in this way. Lastly, plist modified dockside left is incorrect since this is not a recognized macOS command or syntax for plist manipulation. Which one setting can be used to change the device name on iPadOS? Select one answer. A. About. B. VPN and device management. C. Read Touch ID and passcode. Correct answer, A. About. Let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. To change the name of an iPad, you simply go to Settings, General, About. From there, you can tap on the device name field and rename it to whatever you prefer. This is the correct and designated place for renaming a device in iPadOS. Now, Touch ID and passcode is incorrect because it only deals with biometric security and passcode settings, not anything related to device identity. VPN and device management is meant for managing configuration profiles and VPN settings, but does not allow for renaming the device. Lastly, Reset is used for erasing or restoring the device to factory settings and doesn't provide any function for changing the name. What tool can educators use to manage workflows on shared iPad? Select one answer. A. Apple Books. B. Classroom app. C. Finder. D. FaceTime. Correct answer. B. Class. Let's now read the answer. The Classroom app is a dedicated tool from Apple designed to help educators manage student devices and classroom activities. It provides features like launching apps, viewing student screens, and guiding learning sessions, like making it the ideal tool for managing workflows on shared iPads. Now, Apple Books is incorrect because it is intended for reading and distributing digital content, not managing devices or classroom activities. Finder is not available on iPadOS. It's a macOS feature used for browsing files and folders and cannot manage shared iPads. Lastly, FaceTime is used for communication, not for classroom or workflow management. It lacks the controls and visibility teachers need for effective classroom supervision. Which four functions can be performed using disk utility on a Mac? Select four answers. A. Check and repair disk errors. B. Create disk images. C. Combine drives into RAID sets. D. Encrypt iCloud backups. E. Format internal and external volumes. Correct answers. A. Check and repair disk errors. B. Create disk images. C. Combine drives into RAID sets. E. Format internal and external volumes. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. Check and repair disk errors is one of the primary uses of disk utility. The first aid feature within the tool scans for and attempts to fix disk-related issues. Create disk images is another core function. Disk utility allows users to create and manage disk image files, which are useful for backups, distribution, and storage. Combine drives into RAID sets is supported through the Disk Utility RAID Assistant. This feature allows for setting up striped or mirrored disk arrays for better performance or redundancy. Format internal and external volumes is a foundational task handled by disk utility. Whether setting up a new drive or erasing an existing one, disk utility is used for formatting and partitioning. On the other hand, encrypt iCloud backups is incorrect. iCloud backup encryption is managed through iCloud settings, not through disk utility. What is the naming convention for property list files in macOS? Select one answer. A. appname.plist. B. mac.plist. C. comdeveloper. Feature. Plist. D. prefs appname.xml. The correct answer. C. developer. Plist. Let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. The naming convention for property list plist files in macOS is comdeveloper. Feature. Plist. This format follows a reverse DNS structure, helping ensure uniqueness and proper namespace management for system and user preferences. Now, appname.plist is too generic and doesn't follow the structured format required for consistency across apps. mac.plist is not valid. It doesn't indicate any developer or app context and lacks proper namespacing. Lastly, prefs appname.xml uses the wrong file extension and naming style. macOS expects plist files with a .plist extension, not .xml, even though the contents may be in XML format. Which type of storage can disk utility manage? Select two answers. A, internal SSD, external USB drive. C, time machine backups. D, remote cloud volumes. Correct answers. A, internal SSD. B, external USB drives. Let's now explain reasoning behind this. Internal SSD drives are fully manageable using disk utility. You can partition, erase, and repair these drives directly within the macOS environment using tools like First Aid or Format. External USB drives are also supported. Disk utility can format them to various file systems, partition them, and even repair them if needed. In contrast, Time Machine backups are managed through the Time Machine interface, not through disk utility. While disk utility can see the backup disk, it doesn't control or manage backup operations. Finally, remote cloud volumes are out of scope for disk utility. Disk utility works with physical or locally mounted volumes, not with cloud-based services like iCloud or other remote storage platforms. A Jamf Pro admin wants policies in self-service to appear in a specific order for better visibility. What attribute should they set when creating a category? Select one answer. A, display name. B, scope. C, priority. D, target devices. Correct answer C, priority. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. In Jamf Pro, priority controls the display order of categories within self-service. By setting a priority value, admins can determine the exact position where a category appears, ensuring that more important or frequently used items are more visible to users. Now, display name is simply the label of the category. It has no effect on where or how it appears in the list. Scope defines which devices or users a policy or configuration applies to, but not how it's presented in self-service. Target devices refers to the hardware that the policy is assigned to, which also does not influence the on-screen arrangement of items in self-service. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. A test user must be manually assigned to a device even if using LDAP credentials. False. Apple Sign process can find protected files in the system volume. True. The enrollment URL is the same regardless of whether Jamf Pro is cloud-hosted or on-premise. False. Account-driven user-initiated enrollment requires hosting a JSON file with enrollment information. True. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. A test user must be manually assigned to a device even if using LDAP credentials is false because LDAP authenticated users are automatically assigned during enrollment, eliminating the need for manual assignment. Only Apple Sign processes can modify protected files in the system volume is true. System Integrity Protection, SIP, ensures that only Apple's signed system processes can access or alter protected parts of macOS. The enrollment URL is the same regardless of whether Jamf Pro is cloud-hosted or on-premise is false. Cloud-hosted Jamf Pro uses standard domain formats, while on-premise setups typically use custom domains and port 8443, so the URLs do differ. Account-driven user-initiated enrollment requires hosting a JSON file with enrollment information is true. This file includes critical configuration details necessary for completing the enrollment process. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. User-initiated enrollment supports both profile-driven and account-driven methods. True. The MDM profile must be installed through the terminal application. False. Enrolled computers display self-service immediately after the framework is installed. True. Directory service configuration is mandatory for all types of enrollment. False. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. User-initiated enrollment supports both profile-driven and account-driven methods is true because Jamf Pro allows for 4 enrollment combinations, user device with either account-driven or profile-driven methods. The MDM profile must be installed through the terminal application is false. MDM profiles are installed via system preferences or system settings, not through terminal. Enrolled computers display self-service immediately after the framework is installed is true, assuming Jamf Pro is configured to install self-service automatically upon successful enrollment. Directory service configuration is mandatory for all types of enrollment is false. Directory services are optional in Jamf Pro. Devices can also be enrolled using local Jamf Pro user accounts. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Jamf Pro can be integrated with both Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager. True. The server token downloaded from Apple must be uploaded to Jamf Pro to complete integration. True. The Allow this MDM server to release devices option should always be enabled by default. False. After uploading the server token, devices purchased outside Apple will be visible in Jamf Pro. False. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. Jamf Pro can be integrated with both Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager is true. These integrations enable automated device enrollment for organizations and educational institutions. The server token downloaded from Apple must be uploaded to Jamf Pro to complete integration is also true. This token links the MDM server with the Apple environment, allowing device assignments and management. The Allow this MDM server to release devices option should always be enabled by default is false. Enabling this option may unintentionally allow devices to be removed from Apple Business Manager, which is why it is recommended to keep it disabled unless intentional removal is required. After uploading the server token, devices purchased outside Apple will be visible in Jamf Pro is false. Only devices purchased through an organization's Apple account will appear. Devices bought in store with a personal credit card will not be automatically added to Jamf Pro. An administrator has created a new API role and assigned it to clients. Later, they need to expand the privileges. What is the effect of modifying the API role? Select one answer. A. Existing access tokens are invalidated. B. Existing access tokens immediately gain the new privileges. C. All API clients must be manually updated. D. Only new tokens will reflect the changes. B. Existing access tokens immediately gain the new privileges. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. When an API role is modified in Jamf Pro, the changes take effect immediately for all existing access tokens linked to that role. There is no need to regenerate tokens or reconfigure clients. The updated privileges are instantly applied, ensuring smooth and continuous access without any disruption. Now, existing access tokens are invalidated is false because tokens remain valid. They simply inherit the updated role permissions. All API clients must be manually updated is incorrect since Jamf Pro automatically applies the new permissions tied to the API role without requiring manual intervention. Lastly, only new tokens will reflect the changes is also false. The role updates affect both current and future tokens uniformly. A technician integrates Jamf Pro with automated device enrollment using Apple Business Manager. However, the Jamf Pro UI is displaying outdated information. What is the likely cause? Select one answer. A. Delay in Apple to Jamf sync updates. B. A corrupted token file. C. Jamf Pro lost connection to the internet. D. Device supervision is disabled. Correct answer A. Delay in Apple to Jamf sync. Explain the reasoning behind this answer. Jamf Pro synchronizes with Apple Business Manager approximately every 2 minutes. Therefore, a short delay in the sync process can result in outdated information being temporarily shown in the Jamf Pro interface. This behavior is expected and resolves itself shortly. Now, a corrupted token file would break the integration entirely, not just delay updates. It would prevent Jamf Pro from receiving data from Apple at all. Losing connection to the internet would cause a system-wide outage or failure to communicate with Apple's servers, rather than just a slight delay in syncing. Lastly, device supervision being disabled affects what management features are available on the device, but it does not impact how current data appears in the Jamf Pro UI. A school IT admin sends an enrollment URL to a teacher using a Mac running macOS 13. After logging in with their SSO credentials, the teacher sees a prompt to install a certificate before continuing. What additional step must the teacher take due to their macOS version and hosting environment? Select one answer. A. Ignore the certificate and proceed with MDM installation. B. Restart the Mac and the enrollment will continue automatically. C. Use keychain access to trust the built-in CA certificate. D. Disable system integrity protection to allow profile correct answers. C. Use keychain access to trust built-in CA certificate. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. On macOS 13 and later, especially in environments using on-premise Jamf Pro, users are required to manually trust the built-in CA certificate using keychain access. This step ensures that the device can securely communicate with the MDM server and proceed with the profile installation. Now, ignoring the certificate prevents proper trust from being established, which could halt or block the enrollment process. Restarting the Mac won't fix the certificate trust issue. The trust must be explicitly granted. Lastly, disabling system integrity protection is not relevant here. SIP-PEEP doesn't control certificate trust, and disabling it would unnecessarily compromise system security. After logging into Jamf Pro, a systems administrator notices that the dashboard does not show the latest policy deployment data. They want to ensure the data is up to date for an important meeting in 5 minutes. What should the administrator do? Select one answer. A. Log out and back into Jamf Pro. B. Manually refresh the Jamf Pro dashboard. C. Restart the Jamf Pro server. D. Wait for the auto-refresh feature to update the dashboard. Correct answer? B. Manually refresh the dashboard. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. The Jamf Pro dashboard does not automatically refresh, which means data shown can become outdated unless manually updated by the user. To get the most recent policy deployment information before a meeting, the administrator should manually refresh the page. Logging out and back in does not trigger a dashboard data refresh and is an unnecessary step. Restarting the Jamf Pro server is excessive and time-consuming, especially for a simple UI data update. Lastly, waiting for an auto-refresh won't help since the dashboard does not support auto-refreshing. Only manual action will react. An IT department wants to track warranty status for their Apple devices within Jamf Pro. What should they integrate with? Select one answer. A. Apple Configurator. B. Global Service Exchange GSX. C. Managed Apple IDs. D. Apple School Manager. Correct answer B. Global Service Exchange GSX. Reasoning behind this answer. Global Service Exchange GSX is Apple's platform that provides warranty and repair information for Apple devices. By integrating GSX with Jamf Pro, administrators can automatically view warranty details in the device inventory, streamlining support and lifecycle management. Apple Configurator is designed for manually preparing and supervising devices, not for tracking warranties. Managed Apple IDs relate to user identity and are used for accessing Apple services, not for hardware tracking. Apple School Manager helps with device enrollment and deployment in educational environments, but it does not provide access to warranty information. Therefore, GSX is the correct integration for warranty tracking within Jamf Pro. An organization wants to use account-driven user enrollment for employees' personal iPads. Which of the following steps must be taken to support this configuration? Select two answers. A. Create and host a JSON file with enrollment details. B. Upload the MDM profile to Apple Configurator. C. Use a managed Apple ID to log in. D. Ensure the device is supervised during enrollment. Correct answers. A. Create and host a JSON file details. C. Use a managed Apple ID to log in. Let's now explain the reasoning behind these answers. To enable account-driven user enrollment, Apple requires organizations to host a JSON file that provides metadata about the MDM server. This is what the device uses to identify the MDM server during enrollment. Additionally, a managed Apple ID must be used by the user during enrollment. This ID authenticates the user and links their personal device to the organization in a privacy-conscious way. Now, uploading the MDM file configurator is used in other enrollment methods like automated or manual enrollment and is not necessary for account-driven flows. Ensuring the device is supervised does not apply here either, because user enrollment only avoids supervision to preserve user privacy on personal devices. What are the two key account types users can log in with at the Jamf Pro enrollment portal? Select two answers. A. LDAP directory account. B. Microsoft 365 account. C. Jamf Pro user account. D. Apple Configurator account. Correct answers. A. LDAP directory account. C. Jamf Pro user account. Let's now explain these answers. LDAP directory accounts are commonly used in enterprise environments for centralized authentication. Jamf Pro supports LDAP integration, allowing users to authenticate using their organizational credentials and populate user location data during enrollment. Jamf Pro user accounts are also valid for accessing the enrollment portal and managing or assigning devices during the enrollment process. On the other hand, Microsoft 365 accounts are not natively supported by Jamf Pro for enrollment unless configured through a third-party SSO integration, which is not the default setup. Apple Configurator account is incorrect because Apple Configurator is a deployment tool, not an account type used for authentication in Jamf Pro. An enterprise wants to automate enrollment Apple TVs using Apple Configurator 2. They also want to remove all setup assistant interactions and skip manual network selection. What must the technician ensure is included in the configuration profile? Select one answer. A. A certificate's payload only. B. The org magic and department fields. C. Wi-Fi and optionally certificates payloads. D. A default device name and anchor certificate. Correct answer, C. Wi-Fi and optional payloads. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. When automating enrollment using Apple Configurator 2, especially for Apple TVs, the device must connect to a network to reach the MDM server. That's why including a Wi-Fi payload is essential. Without it, the Apple TV will pause at the network selection screen, requiring manual input. Optionally, a certificate's payload may be included if the network requires certificate-based authentication. This enhances security, but is not mandatory unless dictated by the network setup. Now, a certificate's payload only is insufficient. Without Wi-Fi, the device cannot reach the MDM server. The org magic and department fields are useful metadata, but aren't critical to establishing a network connection or automating the setup assistant process. A default device name and anchor certificate are not necessary for enrollment automation. The anchor certificate is only for trust validation, and device naming does not influence setup flow. Thus, including Wi-Fi and optionally certificates payloads is the key step to ensure a seamless, zero-touch Apple TV enrollment experience. What happens when a second local user becomes MDM-enabled on macOS 10.12 or later? Select one answer. A. The first user loses MDM-enabled status. B. Both users retain MDM. C. The computer prompts for re-enrollment. D. Jamf Pro locks the computer. Correct answer. A. The first user loses MDM-enabled status. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. On macOS 10.12 and later, only one local user can be designated as MDM-enabled at a time. If a second local user becomes MDM-enabled, the original user's MDM-enabled status is automatically revoked. This ensures there's a single point of management control. Both users retaining MDM-enabled status is incorrect because macOS explicitly restricts MDM-enabled status to one local user. The computer prompting for re-enrollment does not occur in this scenario. That only happens when the MDM profile is removed. Jamf Pro locking the computer is false. User status changes do not trigger a device lock. MDM conflicts don't automatically result in restrictive actions like locking the system. What is the function of an institutional recovery key? Select one answer. A. It allows the user to log in with biometric authentication. B. It is a shared recovery key used across all managed devices. C. It replaces the Jamf management account password. D. It enables end users to change their file vault password. Correct answer, B. It is a shared recovery key used across all managed devices. Let's now explain the reasoning behind this answer. Institutional recovery is a centrally deployed key used for file vault recovery across all managed macOS devices. It provides IT administrators with a uniform method to unlock encrypted drives in case users are locked out or forget their passwords. This key is designed to be shared and consistent, making it easier for large organizations to manage file vault encryption recovery without needing to store individual user keys. Now, why the other options are incorrect. Biometric authentication A is unrelated to recovery keys. Biometrics like Touch ID or Face ID are used for login, not for recovering file vault access. Replacing the Jamf management account password C is out of the scope of what a file vault recovery key does. Recovery keys pertain only to File Vault, not account management. Enabling users to change their File Vault password, D, is a function that users can already perform through system settings. It's not influenced by the type of recovery key in use. In summary, the institutional recovery key is strictly for secure, centralized File Vault decryption across multiple managed systems. What can you configure to automatically assign new devices to a specific MDM server upon addition? Select one answer. A, set default device assignment. B, use serial number assignment. C, use AppleCare replacement ID to configure profile. The correct answer is A, set default device assignment. Set default device assignment is the correct choice because it enables automatic routing of new devices to the right MDM server without any manual steps. This is especially useful in larger organizations where bulk enrollment is routine. Now, use serial number assignment is not correct because it involves manually entering each serial number, which is labor-intensive and prone to error. Use AppleCare replacement ID doesn't apply here either. That ID is related to repair and support tracking, not device enrollment. Configure Wi-Fi profile also isn't the answer because it helps devices connect to the network, but has nothing to do with assigning them to an MDM server. So the option that ensures automatic and streamlined device assignment is set default device assignment. What is the status of personal device profiles and profile-driven user enrollment according to Apple's latest recommendation? Select one answer. A, they are preferred methods for managing all personal Apple devices. B, they are only supported for iOS 16 and above. C, they are deprecated and no longer recommended. D, they are still supported but require Apple Configurator. The correct answer is C, they are deprecated and no longer recommended. I'll explain why this is the right answer. Apple has shifted its preference toward account-driven user enrollment, especially for BYOD scenarios, due to its better handling of user privacy and data separation. That's why older methods like profile-driven user enrollment and personal device profiles are now deprecated. Option A suggests they are still preferred methods, but that's outdated. They used to be common, but Apple no longer recommends them. Option B mentions support for iOS 16 and above, but the recommendation change isn't based on the OS version. It's a strategic shift in Apple's approach to user privacy and device management. Option D brings up Apple Configurator, which is unrelated to this context. Apple Configurator is used for supervised deployments, not for managing personal BYOD setups through profile-driven enrollment. So the most accurate and up-to-date choice is C. They are deprecated and no longer recommended. Your company is expanding and planning to streamline user sign-in by connecting Apple Business Manager to an existing identity provider. As the IT admin, you're asked to ensure that employees can sign with their Microsoft credentials. What should you do to meet this goal? Select one answer. A, create individual Apple IDs for each user. B, link Apple Business Manager to Microsoft Entra ID using federated authentication. C, manually assign login credentials in Apple School Manager D. Use iCloud credentials with Apple Business Essentials. The correct answer is B. Link Apple Business Manager to Microsoft Entra ID using federated authentication. Let's take a moment to explain why this is the right answer. Federated authentication allows users to sign into Apple services using their existing credentials from Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. This approach not only streamlines the login process for employees, but also ensures centralized management of user credentials within your existing identity provider system. Now, although creating individual Apple IDs might seem like a logical approach, it's time-consuming and doesn't support single sign-on, making it inefficient for large organizations. Meanwhile, manually assigning credentials in Apple School Manager is only suitable for educational institutions and does not support Microsoft integration, making it irrelevant in a business environment. And using iCloud credentials through Apple Business Essentials isn't a valid enterprise solution because those credentials are tied to personal Apple accounts, not managed organizational ones. So in this case, the best and most scalable approach is definitely to link Apple Business Manager to Microsoft Entra ID using federated authentication. What two volumes are part of the default APFS container on macOS? Select two answers. A. System volume. B. Boot recovery volume. C. Data volume. D. Users volume. The correct answers are A. System volume and C. Data volume. Let's go ahead and explain why these two are correct. So the system volume, it's a read-only partition that contains essential components of macOS, such as the op system files and built-in applications. This separation ensures that system files are protected from tampering or accidental changes, improving overall system security and stability. Moving on to the data volume, it's where user-specific content resides. This includes documents, user-installed applications, and preferences. In essence, it's the writable portion of the file system and works alongside the system volume to complete the macOS environment. Now, although the boot recovery volume may sound relevant, it's actually part of a separate recovery partition, not the standard APFS container used during normal operations. And finally, the user's volume doesn't exist as an independent volume. Instead, the user's directory is simply a folder inside the data volume, so it doesn't qualify as a separate volume in this context. So to recap, macOS uses a split volume system, the system volume for integrity and the data volume for flexibility. Which macOS feature helps ensure that apps downloaded outside of the App Store are from trusted sources? Select one answer. A. System integrity protection. B. File vault. C. Gatekeeper. D. Time machine. The correct answer is C. Gatekeeper. Let's explain this is the correct choice. Gatekeeper is a security feature in macOS that verifies whether an app has been signed by an identified developer and notarized by Apple. It checks every app that is downloaded from outside the App Store to ensure it's safe to run, thereby protecting users from malware and unauthorized software. Now, even though system integrity protection sounds like a similar concept, it actually focuses on protecting system files and processes from being modified, not on validating downloaded apps. Meanwhile, File Vault is designed for disk encryption, helping secure user data in case a Mac is lost or stolen, but it doesn't verify application trust. Lastly, Time Machine is used for backups and recovery, and it plays no role in verifying whether apps come from a trusted source. So overall, if you're installing apps from the internet and want to ensure they're safe, Gatekeeper is the macOS feature that's working quietly behind the scenes to protect you. Which browser must be used on mobile devices to access the enrollment URL? Select one answer. A. Google Chrome. B. Mozilla Firefox. C. Safari. D. Microsoft Edge. The correct answer is C. Now this is the correct. Safari is the required browser for accessing the enrollment URL on mobile Apple devices. That's because Apple's user-initiated enrollment process on iOS and iPadOS depends on system-level integration that only Safari can trigger. Other browsers on these platforms don't have the necessary permissions or APIs to support the secure handoff to the device's management framework. For example, Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox are commonly used for browsing, but they lack the deep integration with iOS that Safari provides, meaning they simply won't complete the enrollment process. Likewise, Microsoft Edge, while available on mobile devices, isn't supported for Jamf enrollment either. So, to avoid enrollment errors and ensure a smooth experience, Safari must be used on iOS or iPadOS devices when accessing the enrollment URL. Which of the following ports must be open for Jamf Remote Assist features like screen sharing and file transfer? Two answers. A. 443, B. 5555, C. 25, D. 389. The correct answers are 443 and B. 5555. Take a moment to selection. Port 443 is essential because it's the standard port used for HTTPS traffic, which is necessary for secure communications in Jamf Remote Assist sessions. This ensures that screen sharing and other interactions are encrypted and safely transmitted over the internet. Now, port 5555 plays a more direct role in enabling the actual Remote Assist session. It's used for transmitting control data like screen sharing visuals, keyboard inputs, and file transfers. Without it, you'd initiate a session but be unable to interact. On the other hand, port 25 is commonly used for SMTP, which handles email, not relevant to Jamf Remote Assist. Similarly, port 389 is used for LDAP directory services, not remote screen or file control. So in practical terms, to ensure Jamf Remote Assist functions smoothly, both 443 and 5 need to be open on your firewall or network configuration. Which two directory types are available for binding in a Jamf Pro config file? A. Active Directory. B. Microsoft Entra ID. C. Open Directory / LDAP. D. Centrify Cloud Gateway. The correct answers are A. Active Directory and C. Open Directory LDAP. Let's now explain why. Active Directory is a widely used directory service in enterprise environments, and Jamf Pro supports binding to it directly through configuration profiles. This allows organizations to authenticate Mac users against their Windows-based domain infrastructure, simplifying user access and management. Similarly, Open Directory or LDAP is another supported method for directory binding. It's typically used in macOS-centric or mixed environments and is integrated through the same directory payload section within Jamf Pro. In contrast, Microsoft Entra ID is a cloud identity provider and is used primarily for federated authentication, not local binding through configuration profiles. Therefore, while it supports access, it's not one of the binding options available in the directory payload. As for Centrify Cloud Gateway, although Centrify provides authentication services, it's not an option in the directory binding menu. It might integrate at other levels, but not within this specific configuration workflow. So for directory binding in Jamf Pro, your valid choices are Active Directory and Open Directory / LDAP. While performing a storage audit, an administrator notices 5 volumes inside an APFS container. Which 2 volumes are critical for macOS operation and user data storage? Select 2 answers. B. Data volume. C. Shared volume. D. Applications volume. The correct answers are System volume, B. Data volume. Now let me explain why. The system volume is crucial because it stores all the core startup files and macOS system applications. Without this volume, macOS cannot boot or function correctly. It's typically read-only and protected to ensure system integrity. On the other hand, the data volume holds user-specific files, installed applications, preferences, and organization-related documents. This is the writable area where changes made by the user or administrator are stored, separate from the system core. Meanwhile, the shared volume is not an actual APFS volume. It refers to a folder located inside the user's directory and doesn't function as an independent volume in the APFS structure. Similarly, applications volume doesn't exist as a standalone APFS volume either. Applications are stored in a directory, typically within the system or data volumes, depending on how they were installed. So, for any macOS device to operate properly and manage user data effectively, the system and data volumes are absolutely essential. Which roles in Apple School Manager are authorized to assign devices to an MDM server? Select 2 answers. A. Administrator. B. Site Manager. C. Content Manager. D. Device Enrollment Manager. The correct answers are A. Administrator and D. Device Enrollment Manager. Let's go ahead and explain why these answers are correct. The administrator role in Apple School Manager is designed with full privileges across the system. That means administrators can perform any task, including assigning devices to MDM servers. This makes them fully equipped to manage device enrollment across an organization. Next is the Device Enrollment Manager. This role exists specifically to focus on device-related tasks, and assigning devices to MDM servers is central to what they're allowed to do. Schools or institutions often delegate enrollment responsibilities to this role when they don't want to give full admin access. On the contrary, the Site Manager role is more limited in scope. While they can manage certain settings for a particular location, assigning devices to an MDM server isn't typically part of their permissions. As for the Content Manager, their job is to manage media like apps and books. They don't interact with device assignment settings at all. So if you're assigning devices to an MDM server, make sure you're using either an administrator or a Device Enrollment Manager role. You configure a policy in self-service but want users to read a warning message before running it. Where should you configure this in Jamf Pro? Select 1 answer. A. Maintenance payload. B. Self-service description field. C. Scope tab. D. execution frequency setting. The correct answer is B, self-service field. Let's break down with a quick explanation. The self-service description field is exactly where you go when you want to add important instructions, warnings, or context for a policy. Jamf Pro allows you to configure this field so that users see the message before running the policy in self-service. It's a helpful way to make sure users are informed and acknowledge any warnings before continuing. On the other hand, the maintenance payload is not intended for user communication. It handles background tasks like system inventory updates or flushing logs. Then we have the Scope tab, which determines which users or devices the policy applies to. It doesn't offer any messaging functionality. And finally, the execution frequency setting just controls how often a user can run the policy, whether once per computer, ongoing, or at every login, but it has no effect on whether a message is shown to the user. So if your goal is to make sure users pause and read something before policy, it's all about using the self-service description field. Your organization wants newly purchased iOS devices to enroll automatically without user involvement and be named using a serial number prefix for easier identification. Which configuration will best support this requirement? Select two answers. A. Set up a pre-stage enrollment and configure naming using serial numbers. B. Use the inventory preload feature with custom names. C. Configure manual enrollment for the devices. D. Use the single names naming method. E. Enable automatically assign new devices in the pre-stage scope. The correct answers are A. Configure naming using serial numbers, and E. Enable automatically assign new devices in the pre-stage scope. Now let's look at the explanation behind these two choices. When you want devices to enroll automatically, pre-stage enrollment is the go-to method. Specifically, setting up naming based on serial numbers helps maintain a consistent and unique device naming scheme. This ensures that as devices are deployed, their names are easily traceable and distinguishable based on their serial identifiers. Additionally, enabling the automatically assign new devices setting in the pre-stage scope is what allows devices to enroll without manual steps. This setting detects new purchases tied to your automated device enrollment instance and adds them to the correct pre-stage, which completes the zero-touch setup process. By contrast, inventory preload simply updates Jamf's database after the fact and doesn't affect how devices are named at the point of enrollment. Manual enrollment requires user interaction and doesn't meet zero-touch criteria. And using the single names method just duplicates the same name across devices, which defeats the purpose of easier identification. In summary, combining pre-stage enrollment with automatic assignment ensures a seamless and organized deployment. An admin is reviewing a managed iPad and notices that the assigned user's department is incorrect. What's the correct way to update this information so it reflects across all devices assigned to that user? Select one answer. A. Edit the department in the mobile device's general tab. B. Change the user record in the users tab. C. Remove the user and reassign with new department info. D. Adjust the device's name to reflect department change. The correct answer is B. Change the user record users tab. Now let's go ahead and explain why this is the right choice. When you want updates to apply consistently across all devices tied to a user, the best approach is to edit that user's record directly in the Users tab. By doing this, you're updating the central source of truth in Jamf Pro, and any associated information like department or location is reflected on all devices that the user is linked to. This is efficient and avoids redundant updates. On the other hand, editing the department field within a specific mobile device's general tab only changes that one device. It doesn't cascade changes to other devices assigned to the same user, which is not helpful if you're trying to correct global user data. Similarly, removing and reassigning the user with a new department is unnecessary and time-consuming when a simple edit in the Users tab will suffice. Finally, adjusting the device name only alters its label. It doesn't affect the actual department assignment or user data within the Jamf inventory system. So, to maintain consistency and save time, always update shared user details in the Users tab. A Jamf Pro admin is creating a smart group to track Macs with encryption issues. They want to include devices where file vault is not enabled and encryption status is unknown. What criteria should they use? Select two answers. A. File vault 2 partition encryption state is unknown. B. File vault 2 enabled is not enabled. C. System integrity protection is off. D. Disk encryption configuration is blank. The correct answer A. File vault 2 encryption state is unknown. B. File vault 2 enabled is not. Now let's make this. To identify Macs with encryption concerns, the admin should use criteria that directly reflect file's operational state. The first correct option, 2 partition encryption state is unknown, helps capture devices where Jamf Pro cannot determine whether the system is encrypted. This usually occurs when the device hasn't reported back or hasn't provided a clear status. Equally important is the second correct option. File vault 2 enabled is not enabled. This condition flags systems where encryption is definitely turned off, making them non-compliant with encryption requirements. In contrast, system integrity protection is off, relates to macOS system security features, but it doesn't give any insight into whether a device is encrypted. It's useful for another kind of audit, but not for tracking file vaults. Lastly, disk encryption configuration is blank may indicate that a policy hasn't been deployed, but it doesn't confirm the actual encryption state. So, while it may raise a flag for configurations, it doesn't satisfy the requirement of identifying devices with known encryption issues. To accurately track devices with potential file vault problems, the admin should rely on options A and B. A technician is asked to ensure that all app icons, descriptions, and version numbers of Jamf Pro stay up to date with the app or A. Which configuration should they use? Select one answer A. Manually force app updates. B. Use force update from the app record. C. Schedule automatic app updates. D. Enable self-service for the app. The correct answer is C. Schedule automatic app updates. Scheduling automatic app updates app metadata once per day, including icons and version numbers, keeping Jamf Pro current with the App Store. Manually forcing app updates pushes updates to devices but does not update the metadata in Jamf. Using force update from the app record forces installations but doesn't sync metadata. Enabling self-service allows users to install apps does not automate data syncing. Therefore, scheduling automatic updates is the best choice. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. A group named Devices Without Passcode Set could be used to enforce security policies. True, which allows you to upload images for wallpaper deployment through group settings. Devices must be manually removed from smart groups after updates. Answer, create a search to view members of a static group. Now, to explain in more detail. A group like Devices with Passcode Set help identify devices that don't meet security standards, allowing administrators to apply policies that enforce passcode requirements. This makes it an effective security measure. Additionally, Jamf Pro's Smart Group Management lets you upload wallpaper images that can be deployed to devices in that group, making customization and branding easier. Smart groups are dynamic, so when devices meet or no longer meet the criteria, they're automatically added or removed, eliminating the need for manual updates. On the other hand, static groups have fixed memberships, but you don't need to create a new search each time to view their members. You can simply view the existing group's members directly. This understanding helps streamline device management and security enforcement in an enterprise environment. An education IT team purchases iPads through an Apple-authorized reseller. They want to ensure devices automatically enroll with Jamf Pro and remain managed even after a factory reset. What should they configure? Select answer A. Assign devices using Apple School Manager to Jamf Pro. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. Assigning School Manager Jamf Pro allows for automatic enrollment and supervision through the Setup Assistant. This means even if the device is reset, it will automatically re-enroll and remain managed, which is essential for large-scale device deployments in education. On the other hand, enrolling devices manually using Configurator requires a manual step for each device and does not guarantee persistent enrollment after a reset. Pushing a lost mode command is a recovery action and unrelated to enrollment. Setting a passcode policy before the first boot affects device security but does not impact enrollment or management persistence. Thus, option A is the best approach to ensure devices stay automatically and consistently. In the disk encryption category, what value indicates that device's Vault 2 recovery is mismatched with Jamf Pro records? Select answer. A, valid, B, invalid, C, unknown, D, encrypted. The correct answer is B, invalid. Let's see the reason behind this answer. The invalid status means that the recovery key Jamf Pro has on record for the device does not match the actual key stored on the device. This mismatch can be a serious concern because if a user forgets their password or loses access, the recovery key Jamf Pro holds will not work to unlock the device's encrypted data. In contrast, a valid status confirms that the recovery key stored in Jamf Pro perfectly matches the device's actual key, ensuring secure access when needed. The unknown value means the system hasn't yet verified or received the recovery key status, so no definitive conclusion can be made. Finally, encrypted simply refers to the fact that the device's disk is encrypted, but doesn't specify anything about whether the recovery key matches. Understanding these distinctions helps IT administrators maintain proper encryption management and prevent data loss or access issues across managed devices. An admin uses a configuration profile to enforce strong passwords, but users report they can still use weak passwords. What step might have been missed? Select one answer. A, assigning the profile to a smart group. B, creating a restrictions payload. C, pushing the passcode payload. D, locking the wallpaper. The correct answer is C, payload. Let's take this answer. Passcode payload is specifically designed to enforce password policies on macOS devices. Without pushing this payload, no password strength rules are applied, allowing users to continue using weak passwords. Although assigning the profile to a smart group helps target devices, it does not itself enforce password policies. Similarly, creating a restrictions payload controls feature access but does not influence password requirements. Locking the wallpaper is unrelated to password enforcement altogether. Therefore, pushing the passcode payload is critical to ensuring password strength management. What happens if an app is disabled in Jamf Pro? Select one answer. A, it is removed from installs blocked. B, it is deleted from all devices. C, it automatically uninstalls and notifies users. D, its license is revoked and reassigned. The correct answer is A, it is removed from self-service block. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. When an app is disabled in Jamf Pro, it no longer appears in self-service, which means users cannot install it moving forward. However, this action does not delete the app from devices where it is already installed. It simply prevents new installations. Also, disabling the app does not automatically uninstall it, nor does it notify users of any change. Regarding licenses, Jamf Pro does not automatically revoke or reassign app licenses when an app is disabled. So managing licenses is a separate task. Therefore, the primary impact of disabling an app is its removal from self-service and blocking any future installations. Which network attribute allows you to track whether data roaming is enabled? Select one answer. A, current carrier network. B, roaming status. C, data roaming status. D, settings version. The correct answer is C, data roaming status. Now let's explain behind. The data roaming status specifically tracks whether a device is actively using data services while roaming outside its home network. This attribute is crucial for administrators who want to monitor data usage and manage potential roaming charges. In contrast, the current carrier network simply indicates which carrier the device is connected to, without details on roaming activity. The roaming status shows a general roaming condition but does not provide specifics about data usage during roaming. Lastly, the carrier settings version relates to the version of the carrier settings installed on the device and does not give insight into data roaming status. Therefore, data roaming status is the precise attribute for tracking data roaming activity on a device. What is the purpose of the mobile device inventory display setting Jamf Pro? Select one answer. A. Set up device enrollment workflows. B. Select which fields appear in mobile device search results. C. Restrict users from editing device record. D. Customize smart group criteria. Correct answer is B. Select which here in mobile. Now let's explain reasoning behind this answer. The mobile device inventory display settings in Jamf Pro control what information is visible when performing device searches. This means administrators can customize the data columns shown, which helps streamline device management by displaying the most relevant device details at a glance. This improves efficiency when searching through large device inventories. In contrast, setting up device enrollment workflows involves configuring how devices enroll into Jamf, which is handled separately. Restricting users from editing device records pertains to permission settings, not display options. Lastly, customizing smart group criteria refers to defining groups based on device attributes and is unrelated to inventory display settings. Therefore, selecting which fields appear during searches is the purpose of the mobile device inventory display settings. Which payload should be used to custom lock screen message with device details? Select one answer. A. Restrictions. B. Login window. C. Screen message mode. The correct answer is C. Lock screen message. Let's reasoning in this answer. The lock screen message payload allows administrators to set customized text that appears on the device's lock screen. This can include device-specific variables such as the device name, owner contact info, or other relevant details. This is especially useful for lost device identification or displaying important notices to users before they unlock their devices. Restrictions payloads, by contrast, are designed to limit user access to features and functions, but do not handle messages. The login window payload applies primarily to macOS devices and controls the login screen behavior rather than the lock screen message on iOS or iPadOS devices. Passcode payloads focus on enforcing password complexity and security policies, but do not display messages. Therefore, to show a device-specific message on the lock screen message payload is the correct choice. Where are user-specific PLIST files typically stored? Select one answer. A. System/library preferences. B. Library/preferences. C. Applications preferences. D. Users PLIST cache. The correct answer is B. /libraries preferences. Name the reasoning behind the answer. User-specific PLIST files are configuration files that store preferences and settings unique to each user. These files are stored in the user's home directory under /library/preferences. This allows each user on a macOS device to have personalized settings that do not interfere with other users. On the other hand, system/library/preferences is reserved for system-level preferences affecting all users globally. The /applications preferences directory does not exist as a standard location for PLIST files. Lastly, users/shared PLIST cache is unrelated to preference storage and serves other purposes. Therefore, the correct and typical location for user-specific PLIST files is /library/preferences. You need to send a command to clear passcodes on 950 MacBooks. What is Jamf's best practice regarding batches for this kind of mass action? Select one. A. Send the command to all devices at once. B. Limit each batch to no more than 25 devices. Send commands only from license usage matches. D. Split into batches of fewer than 1,000 devices. The correct answer is D. Split into batches of fewer than 1,000. Send to a large number of devices. Maintain systemity. Avoid overwhelming the management server or devices themselves. Splitting commands into batches of fewer than 1,000 devices helps ensure that the Jamf Pro server processes each batch efficiently, minimizing timeouts and execution errors. On the contrary, sending commands to all devices at once may cause delays or failures due to overload. Limiting batches to only 25 devices is unnecessarily restrictive and can prolong the process, while sending commands based on license usage doesn't apply to mass actions like passcode clearing. Therefore, splitting into manageable batches under 1,000 devices is the optimal strategy. Which two management functions are available when viewing mobile device management information? Select two answers. A. Cancel pending management commands. B. View device's current network settings. C. Activation lock. D. Change device ownership type. The correct answers are A. Cancel pending management commands, and C. Get activation lock bypass code. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. First, admins have the ability to cancel pending management commands, which means if a command has been queued but not yet executed on a device, it can be stopped to prevent unwanted changes or errors. This is useful when quickly needing to halt an operation. Second, admins can retrieve the activation lock bypass code, which is essential for managing devices that are locked through Apple's activation lock security feature, allowing access without the original Apple ID. On the other hand, viewing the device's current network settings is not directly available in the Management tab and typically requires deeper diagnostics or access on the device itself. Changing device ownership type involves a different workflow outside the standard management information view, often requiring administrative permissions and specific processes. Therefore, canceling commands and accessing the bypass code are the key functions accessible in this context. A teacher in a school using iPadOS 17.4 wants to create a quick class session with shared iPads but without setting up rosters in Apple School Manager. How can they do this? Select one answer. A. Enable unmanaged nearby classes in the Classroom app. B. Log in with a managed Apple account through Apple Configurator. C. Use a temporary session and assign students manually. D. Set up classes through Apple Business Manager. The correct answer is A. Enable unmanaged nearby classes in the Classroom app. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. This feature allows teachers who have managed Apple accounts to quickly create ad hoc classes for shared iPads without the need to set up rosters or classes in Apple School Manager. This is particularly useful for impromptu sessions or environments where the overhead of managing rosters isn't practical. The other options do not fulfill this requirement because Apple Configurator is primarily used for initial device setup, not for classroom session management. Temporary sessions, while flexible, do not integrate with the Classroom app or student assignment workflows in a seamless way. Apple Business Manager, on the other hand, is used for device and content management, but is not involved in quick session or roster creation. Therefore, enabling unmanaged nearby classes is the best choice for facilitating swift classroom interactions. An administrator wants to monitor deployment progress of a policy that installs antivirus software. What should they do to visualize success and failure stats on the dashboard? Select one answer. A. Enable login trigger on the policy. B. Add the policy to a static group. C. Select Show in Jamf Pro dashboard. D. Use the verbose flag when executing the policy. The correct answer is C. Select Show in Jamf Pro dashboard. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. Selecting Show in Jamf Pro dashboard adds a visual widget to the Jamf Pro dashboard, which allows administrators to easily track the status of the policy deployment, including successes and failures. This provides a clear overview of the antivirus installation progress across managed devices. Enabling a login trigger on the policy causes the policy to execute at user login, but does not provide monitoring on the dashboard. Adding a policy to a static group only determines which devices are targeted, not how deployment status is visualized. Using the -verbose flag outputs detailed command line information during execution, but does not influence dashboard reporting. Therefore, to get visual feedback on policy deployment, choosing Show in Jamf Pro dashboard is the most effective approach. What content can be distributed via Jamf self-service? Select three answers. A. Mac App Store apps. B. Terminal emulator. C. Books. D. Configuration profiles. The correct answers are A. Mac App Store apps, C. Books, and D. Configuration profiles. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. Mac App Store apps, books, and configuration profiles are all supported content types that can be distributed through Jamf self-service. This allows users to install or apply these items on demand, providing flexibility and user autonomy. In contrast, the terminal emulator is a built-in macOS utility and is not something distributed via self-service. Therefore, only the supported content types like apps, books, and configuration profiles are valid options for distribution in this context. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The open command can be used in a script to launch a web page. Answer: true. -a flag open lets you specify which application to use. Answer: true. The display message command from the Jamf binary does not require root access. Answer: false. It's good practice to surround messages with single quotes when scripting. Answer: true. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. The open command is a versatile tool used in macOS scripting that allows you to launch URLs, files, or applications easily. This makes it especially useful for automating tasks that involve opening web pages or documents. When you use the -a flag with open, you gain the ability to specify the exact application you want to open the item with, giving you more control over how your script behaves and which app handles the content. On the other hand, the display message command from the Jamf binary requires root access to execute because it interacts with system-level notifications and messages. This means it won't work correctly if run without elevated privileges, so saying it doesn't need root access is incorrect. Finally, it is considered good scripting practice to wrap messages in single quotes. This protects the string from being misinterpreted by the shell, especially if it contains special characters or spaces, ensuring your message displays exactly as intended. This small step can prevent many common scripting errors. You are responsible for managing Apple Vision Pro devices in a hospital. You want to stay informed about security and MDM updates for Vision OS and related apps. Select one answer. A. Only iOS and macOS updates are listed in the What's New guide. B. Vision OS updates are included and you can track new security and MDM features. C. You must wait for AppleCare updates to view new features. D. Apple Business Manager automatically emails MDM update summaries. The correct answer is B. Vision OS updates are included and you can track new security and MDM features. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. The What's New guide by Apple provides comprehensive updates across all their platforms, including Vision OS. This means that for administrators managing Vision Pro devices, you can rely on this guide to stay informed about the latest security patches, features, and MDM-related improvements. It's important to note that the guide covers much more than just iOS and macOS. It also includes other platforms like iPadOS and tvOS, ensuring you have a full picture of the Apple ecosystem. Contrary to this, waiting for AppleCare updates is not practical since the Apple Platform Deployment Guide offers real-time updates that are far more useful for IT teams. Also, Apple Business Manager doesn't automatically send update summaries, so you'll need to proactively check these resources to stay current. This knowledge enables efficient management and ensures your hospital's devices maintain compliance and security. Which operating systems are included in the latest platform deployment updates? Select three answers. A. iOS 18.4, B. macOS 15.4, C. watchOS 11.4, D. Ubuntu 24.2. The correct answers are A. iOS 18.4, B. macOS 15.4, and C. watchOS 11.4. Now let's explain the reasoning behind these answers. The latest platform deployment updates from Apple encompass a range of operating systems across their ecosystem. iOS 18.4 represents the newest version of the mobile operating system for iPhones and iPads, which is a critical part of the update cycle. macOS 15.4 is the current version included for Apple computers, ensuring desktop and laptop devices receive the latest security patches and features. watchOS 11.4 covers the updates for Apple Watch devices, which often align with other Apple OS updates to maintain ecosystem consistency. On the other hand, Ubuntu 24.2 is a Linux distribution and not part of Apple's platform deployment updates, so it's excluded from this list. This knowledge helps administrators understand which devices will receive updates through Apple's deployment system and enables proper planning for device management across all Apple hardware. What must be configured in the general payload for policy to run automatically during check-in? Select one answer. A, custom category. B, recurring check-in as trigger. C, manual execution command. D, scope to self-service. The correct answer is B, recurring check-in as trigger. Now let's explain the reasoning behind this answer. The recurring check-in as trigger option in Jamf Pro is essential for policies that need to run automatically each time a device checks in with the server. This means the policy will execute on a regular basis without any manual intervention. On the other hand, setting a custom category is primarily for organizational purposes, helping admins group policies but not triggering their execution. The manual execution command bypasses automation, requiring someone to initiate the policy manually, which defeats the purpose of automatic running. Finally, scoping a policy to self-service allows users to initiate it themselves, but does not trigger automatic execution. Understanding this distinction is crucial for admins who want policies to run consistently and maintain device compliance automatically.